Hello there, and welcome to another character profile. Remember many years ago when I was much rougher, sloppier, and had an entirely different name, and I did a video on my favorite Batman villains? Well, Harley Quinn is still my number one, but I did neglect to include one villain who certainly had an interesting evolution over the years. He has gone from silly to dramatically heartbreaking to back to silly. I'm talking about Mr. Freeze. Mr. Freeze, or Victor Freeze, his real name, sounds like a joke villain with his constant plans of freezing over Gotham and its inhabitants. And in the beginning he certainly was. Originally named Mr. Zero, one element of his origin that has stayed consistent since 1958 is the effect of cryogenic chemicals that cause him to acquire cold temperatures in order to survive. At the start he was written as a fairly one-dimensional villain not meant to be taken seriously. The name Mr. Freeze was created by the team of the Batman television series with Adam West. 3 different actors played him, but the most notable was George Sanders. That's right, the theater critic from All That Eve and Shere Khan in The Jungle Book. And considering the tone of the show, he looks pretty much as ridiculous as you'd expect. It looks like he's about to go into outer space in that outfit. And throughout the years, Mr. Freeze kept his silly portrayal. But hope would come when a new team of artists would decide to take Batman seriously again. During the 80s and well into the 90s, talented folks like Frank Miller, Tim Burton, and Bruce Timm would revive the Dark Knight in a better light for a new generation, and still continue on to this day. I actually find it hard to look at Christopher Nolan's trilogy and not think he was in some way inspired by the animated series. Writer Paul Dini was able to take this ridiculous villain and turn him into a sympathetic figure in the episode Heart of Ice. The result is a touching storyline, and his motivations are shown to be not of greed or anger like other Batman villains, but rather because of sadness. Trying to save his terminally ill wife, Victor Freeze is shown as a good scientist who is affected by a lab accident, to the point where he becomes a villain who vows to cure his wife. His reasoning is not because of malice, but rather by love. This allows Bruce Wayne to understand his plight and try to help his ordeal to the best of his ability. Of course, Batman saves the day, but Mr. Freeze is actually shown to be sorry, and the episode certainly ends on a sad note. Batman the Animated Series didn't utilize him much following that, but he did get a direct-to-video feature titled Sub-Zero. Nicely continuing Mr. Freeze's storyline, the film had the right element of action, but also heart to it. The writing is smart, and it's much like a big-screen adventure like Mask of the Phantasm, even though it is pretty much 3 episodes of the animated series strung together. The action scenes are well done too, and the relationship between Dick Grayson and Barbara Gordon doesn't feel cheesy at all. The CGI doesn't gel with the traditional animation, though, and Shirley Walker's operatic score would have given this an even bigger jolt of energy. And sadly, Mary Kay Berman's voice doesn't really fit with Batgirl as well as Tara Strong. Nonetheless, this is a rollicking adventure and a fine hour for both Batman and Mr. Freeze. Like a lot of other characters, Mr. Freeze was given a complete redesign in the new Batman Adventures, but his turmoil remained. Heartbroken his wife will never reunite with him, he vows to freeze the entire city so they can share his anguish. World destruction aside, it's good to see that Dini and Tim were able to keep that inch of humanity in the character. And then we get to the elephant in the room, which is the character's portrayal in Batman and Robin. Everyone and that uncle has talked about how horrible this film is, but I feel the biggest offender is how they depict Mr. Freeze. While the filmmakers did utilize the wife storyline created by Paul Dini, they also reverted him back to the early silly depictions. Arnold Schwarzenegger pretty much throws one awful pun after another, and each one just lands with a thud. This is pretty much the film most people use to make fun of Arnold Schwarzenegger's acting style. I actually skimmed through his recently released autobiography, and the main thing he remembers doing while making Batman and Robin was sleeping with the maid. So he made 2 terrible decisions in 1 year. If 1996 wasn't a low point for him, I don't know what is. Thankfully, Bruce Timm and his team managed to bring Mr. Freeze back to his non-comical depiction with appearances in the later DC animated shows, most recently in Young Justice, which was just cancelled by Cartoon Network. On the bright side, we're getting new Teen Titans and the Pop-Up Girls. Oh, and Rebecca Sugar has a new show coming out later this year. That is going to be fantastic. But I'm getting off topic here. Mr. Freeze may be reduced again to a laughingstock villain by an Austrian governor, but I think more serious and heartbreaking version from the animated series is certainly what we enjoyed and remembered by almost all Batman and superhero fans. See you next time.